Good morning.
Well, very good morning, everyone, on this wonderful 27th of March 2022. Welcome to our live stream on body part 4.
Part 4, I can't believe it's here. Somebody said this, didn't they? We thought we'd do it in a week, then 2 weeks, then 3 weeks, and here we are on week 4. I knew it was going to be a long one, this one.
So we're just going to wait for a few people to come in, and we're going to get going on body part 4. So we've got some interesting stuff to chat about this morning. We're going to chat about stomach. We're going to chat about blood. We're going to chat about heart. We're going to chat about lungs. And then a kind of a bit of a weird one. What happens if you're exposing your bottom in a dream?
Going to put our rear end at the end. Sorry, I'm in a bit of a mischievous mood this morning. I don't know where that's come from. It's interesting though. I mean, at least the first 4 is all internal stuff: stomach, blood, heart, and lungs. So it's it comes up in dreams, and we've got examples. And it's an interesting area, actually, of our body to think about, and not one that often gets much attention. So it's going to be good to go over it and get into that.
Definitely. So we're excited. This is the last one we're doing, body part 4, and that's it for body. We're definitely not going to be carrying on doing any more body. But it's been good, and we're excited to get going. So you wanted to, I wanted to first say, we'll say hi to everybody once everyone's come in.
Yes.
But we wanted to just tell you about the next few weeks. We're going to just take a bit of time with the family because we feel that's important. Ethan's home, Sophie's off school, so we're all on Easter holidays, so we're going to take a few weeks off. But never fear, because actually Jesus does say that, do not fear. We're gonna be editing some videos, and then we're going to be feeding some videos through so everyone can have a look at some of the work we've done on specific dream elements. So I don't know if anybody has seen the videos. If you could comment and say, yep, we've seen the videos, or we haven't seen the videos, and maybe just let us know how they've come across and if you've enjoyed them. So I want to say hi, Francine. Thank you so much for joining us. She says hi, John and Audrey.
Yeah, hi, Francine. Good to see you with us. And Margaret McConnell's also watching. So good morning to you, Margaret. Good to have you with us. Thank you for joining.
So anyway, we wanted to say we're definitely going to be keeping some of the videos and stuff coming onto the group, but what we've done is we've had to put it on YouTube just because of how unwieldy Facebook is. So just let me know, anybody who's coming in, if you've had a chance to have a look at the YouTube channel, and let us know if you've enjoyed it or if it's been helpful in any way. Also, if you could grant StreamYard permission, just so, because I've got a stream coming up here saying, good morning, guys, but I can't actually see who it is.
Yeah, that's Jennifer Gallard.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it. So, John, do you want to talk a bit about the navigating through the YouTube channel?
Yeah, I do actually. Just as a quick introduction, if you've been following our Understanding Your Dreams Facebook the news feed this week, you'll have seen we've posted links to some videos which we have put up on YouTube. So from the beginning of this group, the Understanding Your Dreams group, it was always our design that we would talk about understanding your dreams, in particular dream elements, but we wanted the group to be a resource. And so when obviously it takes quite a lot of time and effort to put together a talk about a different dream element, and we didn't want it just to be sort of broadcast and gone. So we always had an idea that we would do something with it, and that's why we started to use the Facebook guides system on the Facebook page, where you go to the guides tab and you can see that we've got kind of all of our historic talks are archived there. But it is a bit unwieldy, isn't it? It doesn't like...
it's quite difficult.
It's quite difficult to navigate through.
Yeah.
I don't really like it a huge amount. And YouTube has got, obviously, because of what it is as a platform, is much better at holding video. So we wanted to use YouTube as a way of holding all the video content that we had produced. But it didn't seem to be the right thing just to dump everything on YouTube. So Ords, and she's done an amazing job, actually, of editing down some of our old talks from almost a year ago and putting them into things we call pods. So they're little bite-sized, probably plus minus 10 minutes on any given dream element or topic. And the idea is that you can go to those and kind of get the things that the way we've talked through say people or transport or whatever it is. And it's not just like transport as a heading, but it would be like a cars or bicycles or something like that. So it's be quite specific, and it enables you then to just go and get like 8 to 12 minutes on any specific topic that we've addressed that you want to catch up on if it's puzzling you, or you've got a dream that's puzzling you with that in it. So just to give you an idea, I think Ords has got this up on screen share. I can see that now. If you go to the channel, you'll see that our branding is the same. It's the sort of the starry skies and understanding your dreams with John and Audrey. That's what it's going to look like. You can link through to it through the Facebook page. If you just go to one of those videos on the feed, it should go. If you've got the YouTube app on your device, it will click through to that YouTube app, and then just make sure you subscribe to it, because then it will put your it'll put our channel in your list of channels, and it'll make it a lot easier to find the next time you want to find something on it. You go to your list of channels that you're subscribed to, click on Understanding Your Dreams, it takes you to the channel, and then you can look for what you want. And
when we post new videos, it'll come up immediately on your YouTube, so you don't even have to click through, because I've shared some stuff, but actually some of the stuff actually is has been released on YouTube. I've shared a few videos, but I think we've got 7 or 8 that are live, and also we've got about 20 that are in draft, and we're going to post, so we're going to really fill those. I'll show you here, the playlists are really going to be filled out. So we've got animals, body, people, questions, houses and transport, and there's lots of other themes, but I'm going to be filling those out as we go along.
So just to reiterate, please do subscribe to the channel, because it'll make it a lot easier to find when you go to your YouTube app, and also click that little bell icon to the right of it, because then when a new video is uploaded, you get a little notification that video's gone live, and you'll know that we've posted something for you to at least like go, okay, I know that's now on YouTube, and I can go and find it if I need to look for it. So that's kind of how it's all arranged. You'll find all the videos listed on the homepage, but we've also used the playlists to kind of categorize them. So it'll be people, and then it's like family members, mother, father, and so on. So use the playlists to work through. It's a bit like contents in a book, and an indexing system for all of our old content, and it's all going to go up there. So we're keen to build that out as a sort of online library for you guys to use to help you interpret your dreams and other people's dreams. So would just like to end off that sort of little tour of the YouTube channel by saying thanks so much to Ords, because honestly, I mean, I put a few photos on YouTube and a bit of words in the description, but Ords was the one who's done most of the work editing it. So great job.
I do apologise. I am still learning. I really would like to do the best I can, but I think with my limitations of video editing knowledge and stuff, it's been a bit of a hair pull out for me this week. But it's been fun, actually, looking at the videos going, hey, I remember when we did that thing on cars. I remember when so it's always fun looking at the videos and remembering the stuff and remembering doing the live streams with you guys. It's always such a blessing.
It's quite nice as well because I actually looked back on the one on cars and I kind of thought, you know what, I probably wouldn't change too much actually, which is a good test. It's like the basics are here. There's a few things I might tweak a little bit, but I'd say like 90% of it I probably would say the same things now about what a car is in a dream. So that's good. It's good advice, I think.
So John, would you like to say hi to some people? We see some people have come in, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. We so much appreciate you taking the time and for all your comments. And so I just wanted to say, Heather, thank you so much. She said, you're brilliant. You guys are a gift. So thank you so much, Heather, for your encouragement, really.
Yeah, thanks so much, Heather. Also, Jen Gallard is watching with us. So hi, good morning. Good to see you with us too, Jen. And thanks for posting up. You put up a dream picture that you had. I really love the fact that you'd illustrated it and put it up as a photo. That was great. Thank you.
So let's say hi. Margaret McConnell's watching. I think you've greeted her. Michelle Fredericks. Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining us. And Ethan, who is here. He's come home. I think he's upstairs lying in his bed all snuggled down in his duvet.
He works hard when he's at uni, actually, so he deserves it.
Yeah. So he said, good morning. Thank you, Ethan, so much for joining us. We really appreciate you. And we're just really proud to see how God's moving in your life and all the amazing things he's been doing through you. So I've said hi to Michelle. We've said hi to Heather. And hi to Beatrice Isaacs. Thank you so much for joining us, Beatrice. It's such a blessing to have you with us this morning. We really, really appreciate it.
And also we have Beryl Johnson watching with us. So
wow.
Thanks so much for joining us, Beryl. It's really good to have you with us. Thank you.
We really appreciate you joining us. So we really appreciate everybody in the group. We really thank you for all your words of encouragement and all your contributions. So we'll press on to some of the rest of body part 4. And if you have any questions or you have any comments, then please feel free to post them and ask questions and we'll try and get to them. So I've got Heather saying she must check it as she had another dream last night. Yes, I think I've posted the one on cars and trains, but if I haven't, I will post it for you. Great. So, John, shall we get on to internal organs? Because today we're going to be chatting mostly about internal organs. And they're quite an interesting group of our body. So I don't know if you want to just let us think about how we can think about if we have a dream about an internal organ, what we should start thinking.
Okay, so internal organs. We're talking about things here like the heart, the lungs, the stomach, the intestines. They pop up in the Bible. They do also become a feature in our dream. I think the first thing to note about them, so kind of thing number one, is this is all stuff that's inside of us. So often when it pops up in a dream, it kind of it pops up in a way that's showing you something wrong. Just like if our stomach is functioning fine and our heart and lungs are functioning fine, kind of don't even notice them really, just kind of get on with your life. And so it is with your dreams, that if you're if that's a feature in your dream that you're focusing on, it's probably telling you that there's something you need to pay attention to in that area. But it's an unseen thing that's become seen. The second thing and way of thinking about it is that a lot of these internal organs represent a system, and it's one of the ways to approach it is you have to think about it in terms of a system. So if we just take the stomach, and we'll come to this later in more detail, but the stomach is part of our digestive system, which sort of starts at the mouth and ends up on the toilet, but it's part of that system, and so what your dream may be telling you may be related to that system, and just as so if you have a stomach pain, one of your first things to think about, well, the first question we always ask when our kids have a stomach pain is, well, was it something you ate? You know, that's the first thing you think, right? So they're all part of a system. The heart is part of your cardiovascular system. It pumps blood around the body. Blood is its own metaphor established in scripture. We'll talk about that later. The respiratory system is obviously all to do with breath. That has its own foundations in scripture, as well as to what breath means. We'll come on to that later, and so on and so forth, you know. So think about it as part of a system. And I think those are the two ways, at least, that we can start thinking about internal organs.
Thank you for that. That's really good. So let us think about the stomach, because we've been sent some interesting dreams on the stomach. And it's interesting that more people dream about the stomach than you would think. And as you say, they all would come up, most of the time, they come up as something wrong with the stomach. But let's start thinking about the stomach. Maybe give us some ideas of, if you dream about the stomach, what are you dreaming about?
Okay, so just to give you the headlines here, if you're dreaming about the stomach, the kind of the first ways I would start to think about it are, the stomach is often seen as the source of life. That's part of the ancient Hebrew conception of the stomach. And even to this day, if you have a full tummy, you feel good. If you have an empty tummy, you feel bad. And that's sort of where it goes back to. The second way to think about it is it's our ability to digest the world and kind of eliminate the waste stuff that we don't want to keep and doesn't nourish us effectively. So it's part of our digestive system. And as we talked about, I think in a previous live stream, that has to do with a lot to do with like ideas and doctrine and biblical understanding, but often things we just pick up along the way. And the third way is a bit kind of different, actually, and that's often people can dream about things sitting on their stomach, or you got, like, you know, I've currently got a pair of jeans, which I would say my jeans sit on my stomach. That's kind of how we talk about them. So that would be the third way of thinking about the stomach: source of life, ability to digest the world, and something sitting on the stomach. But I know you have
it's interesting because source of life, I went to studylight.com, which is one of the resources we use. It's a lexical dictionary, and it's very useful because you can look up the root meanings of words and understand their origin. And it's interesting because the Hebrew concept for stomach, actually the Hebrew word is hayach, which is life, actually. And so they believe that when the stomach was empty, that you're famished and weak, and when it's filled, you're revived. So it was seen as kind of the organ that was the source of life, because an empty stomach was like death, but a full stomach was life to the Israelites back in the days. And I think we can all agree how grumpy we get when we have an empty stomach. But I mean, it's interesting because when you fast, you weaken yourself so that you can hear spiritually. So that's when you physically don't eat, what you're doing is you're eating spiritually. And so that's an interesting concept. But it's so interesting because it's also all the way through contemporary English literature and phrasing, like a shot to the gut. It's a term which means it's a painful and devastating blow that takes a long time to recover from. And actually, I've seen this spiritually when people have been shot by other people with powerful weapons or have an authority over them. It takes a long time for those people to recover within a spiritual sense, you know. So that's kind of my thoughts on the stomach and the Hebrew.
No, it's really interesting, isn't it? I think moving on to the second part, the stomach as part of the digestive system. We talked about teeth last week, about being able to discern things like this from that, good from bad, and about the front teeth, but also the back teeth. We even call them wisdom teeth, you know, are there for chewing things over, for really thinking about things before we swallow it. We also talk about taste as being about discernment. You know, we might say, oh, this person's got a really good taste in music, or they've got a great taste in clothes.
Yeah, you married me, you've got good taste.
I've got good taste, you see. So I've got discernment. And we talk about having, that was a miracle of discernment at that point in my life, actually.
I think that was Jesus helping you.
Yeah. So we talk about taste as being discernment, and it is important because if you think about what you were saying about the Hebrew, if you take something that's rotten into the source of your life, or something that's off, then you really you got problems. you know what I mean. And that's one of the reasons why our taste is not just there for pleasure, although that's how we experience it in the modern world. But it's really, the taste is there so we don't eat things that are going to cause us to be sick, right?
And it's interesting because some people, actually, I have to admit, I'm a super taster. So and so is my son Ethan. You aren't a super taster, and neither is Sophie.
No.
But I'm extremely sensitive to smells, to tastes, and in the natural, I'm actually extremely sensitive. But I'm also, actually, I've noticed Ethan and I are both very extremely sensitive in the spirit realm. So both of us actually have an ability to discern by taste of a spiritual atmosphere. And I find it quite interesting. I think if you ask God for that kind of discernment, he'll actually help you. But I just find it interesting that super tasters are sometimes, I believe, can actually be prophetic people. Prophetic people can be very sensitive in the spirit.
Yes, yeah, no, I agree with that. Actually, that's true. I just kind of So moving it on. I think a lot of the metaphor around the stomach pivots on Jesus' teaching that man shall not live by bread alone, which is interesting. You were talking about fasting just now as being you get nourished in the spirit when you deny yourself food. And there's equally, when you have a full stomach, there's actually a spiritual dullness that kind of comes with that. It's difficult to really pray after you've just had a heavy meal. You actually just end up falling asleep. I mean, I do if I try to do that, So there is a relationship there, and then that metaphor, that biblical metaphor, obviously is at the end of Jesus' 40 days of fasting. So that is what he's talking about, these parallel nourishments. Again, to also pick up some contemporary phrases with what we eat and what nourishes us and what doesn't and goes in. We say things like, "Oh, I really can't stomach that," which would mean I can't accept that, I can't take that into myself, I can't engage with it. I'm going to reject it. We also say, if somebody's quite gullible, well, wow, they really swallowed that lie, didn't they? When you see somebody believe something you just know to be untrue. So we still talk about digestion and the stomach in these terms of things that we believe we take into ourselves, or things we can't take into ourselves. And it becomes a key metaphor for core ideas, interpretation of scriptures, and kind of philosophies, really, like life philosophies that we live by.
And I mean, I think, let me cover the thing about something sitting on the outside of your stomach or something. So if we think about the thing that we're supposed to have sitting on the outside of our stomach, it would be the belt of truth. So if we think about Ephesians 6, it says, put on the armor of God, and one of them is the belt of truth. So that's about truth, understanding God's word, knowing the truth of who he is, his character, and we enter through this in a relationship with God, but also understanding the word, praying in tongues, spiritual things we do. But that would be something sitting around your waist. Now, I was sent this really interesting question or a snippet of a dream, and let's talk about it a bit. So she says, can you help me unravel this dream? It's a python sat heavy on my stomach. So this is really interesting because we know what is a snake in a dream. So a snake has a long tail, and a snake is often a lie or something that you've believed that's a lie. Now let's look at what a python is. A python is a constrictor. So it's something that wants to constrict the life out of your stomach, but it's where it's trying to. It's sitting over your belt of truth. So it's trying to tell you a lie. What it's doing is it's trying to be in the place of where the truth of God should be in your life. And so that's what my sense of that dream is. Probably you were going through a period in your life where something was lying to you, or there was a lie at the center of your life that God was revealing to you. And the good thing is in these dreams, when you see that kind of thing, what actually is happening, it may be dark, weird, and difficult, but what's actually happening is God's bringing something to the light. And that's why these dreams are so good and so important. So I just want to say that's such a good dream. And the thing to do is to pray and ask God for wisdom to understand what the lie is and what truth he wants to reveal to you. So that is that dream. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. Just to add, I agree fully with that interpretation. But I would add, this is like, it's one of the wiles of the enemy is invisibility. In fact, it's one of his key kind of strategies is to keep things invisible from us, and that's one of the reasons why dreams are so important, is because they bring things to the light. And we know he's defeated at the cross and by the blood of Jesus. We like those words. Those are good words. Blood of Jesus, even if you just say, Jesus, your blood covers this dream, and I know because you brought it to my attention, you're going to bring a healing. Even if you don't know anything else, if you say that, then this thing is on its way. And that is like, that's part of the point of bringing things into light. It is that we are able to speak out of the authority that God gives us in Christ over those things. And even if we don't know in our minds how the thing's going to work out or the answer, it's like it's broken at that point, right? It's actually like its power is gone. In Jesus' name, so that's one of the great things about dreams, is that bringing of the invisible into the visible realm, where we can speak out our authority over it.
That's so good, John. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, it's good,
and also, I just want to say thanks so much to Joe Hampton for sending us that dream. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. So let's move on to another dream. Actually, we interpreted in one of our studio sessions, probably about 3 or 4 months ago. A group member sent us a dream where they were in their car as a passenger, and there was an incident in front of them. They were they asked their driver to pull up and wait, telling them, oh, well, this incident is all on dash cam, right? There was a big commotion, and we witnessed someone being shot in the stomach. Then there's quite a lot of things that happen to do with the sort of SIM card, putting them away, and storage, and things to do with where all of this capturing of the incident goes. And then there's another place towards the end of the dream where she says, we heard them shooting others. This is the only time I felt afraid, but was determined to keep walking, expecting to be shot in the back. Ooh. Then I woke up. Wow. So it's obviously quite a dark, difficult dream around witnessing an incident and having a record of it, being an incident of somebody being shot in the stomach, but then also expecting to be shot, but in the back. So we've got a kind of a shooting thing going on here, but obviously the thing that we want to zone in on here is what it means to be shot in the stomach, which is the thing that she's witnessed. So it's interesting. It's not something that's happened to her in this dream. It's something that she has seen and actually has a record of somewhere. So how would we think about this? Well, it depends on what gun it is as to kind of the exact meaning, and we may actually do a little section on what different types of guns mean. But we know that shooting and guns and bullets often have to do with authoritative words. So this is either somebody who we've given an authority to, if they're shooting at us, that's why we're getting shot at, or it's very targeted. There's something that's very targeted and specific about it. But it's often to do with words which penetrate us. And this isn't something that penetrates her, but it's something that she's seen. She's seen somebody who's been on the wrong end of somebody's like devastating, penetrating words, probably criticism of them, and it's entered into their source of life. Which is the stomach, and it's that feeling. If you think about just getting punched in the stomach, you kind of you double over, and it's like it's painful. She doesn't talk about whether there's any blood in this, because we'll come on to blood a bit later, because that would mean something else. But it's definitely, she's seen a verbal attack which has been very targeted towards something. And the interesting thing to note in this dream is that there's a symmetry, and I've started seeing this more recently. You can start to see symmetry between elements. She witnessed somebody being shot, and so now means that she's expecting to be shot, but she's expecting to be shot in the back. So this is, okay, I've seen somebody shot like face to face because it's got into the stomach, but I'm actually expecting to be shot and it's going to be unseen. It's going to come in from the back. And also we know, like, to be stabbed in the back or shot in the back is kind of an indication of a betrayal. So there's an element of that about it as well. But the whole dream is a meditation on actually people's harsh words towards each other in whatever context this represents.
And it's interesting because God gives us these weapons as the body of Christ or the bride of Christ. We're given those weapons to take out the devil.
Yes,
the
that's right.
enemy is the one we should be aiming at. But often when we've been given an authority, we use it on other people. And I think it's very important that we in the time coming, there'll be a change in this in the body. I see that, but anyway, I digress. So that's what our authority is for taking out the enemy.
Yeah.
And he does actually want to keep us busy with taking each other out. Actually, it's a while of his.
Yeah.
So that's really good, John. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Okay. So another dream about the stomach, just to, again to give you like a flavour of how to think about the stomach in dreams. Now let's talk about this dream. I dreamt I took a woman to the hospital because she had a problem with her stomach. She was holding it and was in terrible discomfort. I led her by her right arm. As we entered the hospital, there were so many people with stomach problems. There was one young man sitting on a bench and he leaned over and started vomiting, holding his tummy. I walked in very shocked to see so many people with the same problem. And I woke up just after a nurse helped the lady I brought to the doctor. So what do you think about that dream?
It's so interesting. It's such an interesting dream because often when you have a problem with your stomach, it could be something you've eaten. It could be something that it's often something you've ingested.
Yes, that's right.
So it can be bad food.
Yep.
Or some kind of bacterial thing in bad food.
Yes.
So that's often what it's related to is bad poisonous food.
Yeah.
So poisonous food, what's poisonous food? Often, I don't know, when you eat food, often it's stuff you're fed in, and I feel it's something she's been fed in church or something she's believed that somebody's told her. So it's interesting because this person said she leads her on by her right arm, which is her strength. So the faith and strength. Obviously, when you're sick and you've got food poisoning, normally what would happen is you start getting weak. So this woman's become weak. And it's interesting when you're leading someone with your right arm, often you're doing it with the person leading is doing it with their left arm. So I believe this person with their calling, they're born and called, they're leading this person because they're weak in their right arm, and they're taking them to a hospital. What's a hospital? It's a place of healing. It's a place where and sometimes actually hospitals can refer to a spiritual place of healing where God can come in and heal you. So this person has taken the person to a place where they can get healed, and now she's noticed that other people have come into the hospital and they're also vomiting, which often speaks of food poisoning. I think vomiting is food poisoning.
Yeah.
And he's holding his tummy, so he knows there's something wrong and there's pain. And she said she walks in very shocked to see so many people with the same problem, and she wakes up just as a nurse helps the lady that she brings to the doctor. So it's so interesting because I feel like nurses can often represent angelic beings, but it could represent people who are also helping other people who've been injured or hurt. So it could be another person in ministry who could be helping that person. So the doctor, I believe, is the great doctor, Jesus. And that's one of the things is that we always take people back to Jesus. When there's a problem, you take people back to Jesus, and that's what we try and do. And when somebody comes with a problem, is I always say, well, go ask Jesus. I'll point you back to Jesus. So I feel, just to summarize this, I feel there's been some food poisoning in some kind of body or some kind of community, and that's why there are more people at this hospital with stomach problems, because there's been something poisonous or something bad taught at a body or in a spiritual group, and that this person has seen this, they've perceived it, and they've taken this woman, she knows where to take her, to the hospital, this place of healing, and she's taken her there and realized that this has happened to other people. And so it might be relating to a fellowship you know about, where people are saying, oh, there's been this thing happening at this fellowship, and and you're just hearing all these stories of bad stuff. And I think in the dream, what God is saying is, I'm called you by your born and called to help these people. So it's a really interesting, it's a good dream about stomach. And I know you had some thoughts on the interpretation of that as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting dream. I mean, I think my initial thought was, if you know somebody who's ill and then you go to hospital and everybody else has got the same problem, you're like, okay, where do we get this from? This is food poisoning. I mean, it's first thought, right? It's food poisoning. Yeah. And so that would indicate that they've all eaten something which they just can't stomach.
Yeah.
And I hadn't thought about this before, but I suppose you might also think it's like an infection of some kind, right? A bacterial infection or a viral infection, but it would be a similar kind of thing. So rather, maybe there's a teaching, they're trying to, somebody's come and taught something, that's one possible thing, that they just can't stomach this because it's wrong, but it could be something in the spiritual atmosphere that they've all been infected with, and that there's some turbulence going on in their community. Somebody's come in with ideas or an approach, and they're just like, we can't stomach what's going on here, and it's causing them all to like have this terrible pain. So it's something like that is the cause. But I agree, it's like, it's take people to Jesus, and what you're born and called to do is to take people by their faith and strength. And I think, practically this is just being a good friend, listening to people, listening to the way that they hurt. I'm holding my stomach, this is what it feels like, this thing is just so wrong. And then taking people to, okay, well, what do you think God's saying about that? What do you think God's leading you to do in this situation? And then just trying to lead people to that kind of a response. I guess that practically is what it looks like, right?
Yeah, thank you for that, Jay. And also thanks so much to Renee Eber for sending us that dream. We really appreciate you sending your dreams to us. Thanks everyone. Renee. So this is interesting because I was listening the other day to a church leader. I mean, we respect this ministry quite a lot. So we were quite interested to hear they're going through a period of prayer and fasting as a body to create unity in the body. And it's something the lady stood up and shared. She's one of the leadership and eldership of the church, and she said she had this dream where a large white worm was in her mouth. She pulled this large white worm out of her mouth, and I don't know if she kind of microscoped in on it, but she saw that it had claws or hooks like a Venus flytrap, and she realized she'd been chewing bits of it in her teeth. And she had to think, what is this? And then she realized, like a bucket, there were a whole lot of them, like a bucket stuck in her throat. What on earth is that about? That is it's such an interesting dream. But it's really good to bring this in, because this is about stomach, and this is about the stuff that we take in. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a really, really, really interesting dream. And as she said, it was deliberately gross because it's designed to be repulsive to the dreamer. So you take it seriously and you take that sense of disgust about it. You're supposed to be disgusted about whatever it is this dream is telling you about, right? So it's interesting. The first question is, why is this a dream about the stomach? And I think it's a dream about the stomach because, as we thought about it, it's to do with the digestive system. And it's all to do with that thing we were talking about earlier, which is often what's in your stomach and can cause you problems is because something's gone in your mouth. And that's where the sort of the narrative of the dream is taking place. The symptoms are in the throat and mouth, but it's probable that, and she said it was like a bucket in the throat, but it's probable that the source was in the stomach. And if we just think about parasites, that people suffer from these things all over the world, people have always suffered from parasites. They often go in through, are ingested, and end up sitting in your stomach, because that's kind of where the food is, and the food is for them. So the source of it is in the stomach. I mean, we kind of looked up the description, and it actually sounds like a a hookworm. I mean, we know there are others, but it sounded like a hookworm, and it does go into your goes into your stomach, and then it robs you of your nourishment. And I mean, they are a discerning church, and the way she discerned it, and the church leadership discerned it was about their speech. But she also discerned a deeper layer, that it wasn't just about the words that came out of her mouth, but it was about the things she was chewing over. And so that would be the things that they kind of, you're always thinking about, the voices in your head arguing back and forth between this thing and that thing. And it's a church in America. They talk a lot, they confessed a lot about their ability when they meet. They often end up talking about politics, because that's a huge part of church culture in America right now. They're talking a lot about the political life, and whether it's Republican or Democrat, and so on and so forth. And I think they saw it as God telling them, like, this stuff is like parasitical. It's taking life from you, which you should be saying other things, not these, to each other, and even from the platform. This is something you've got to work on. So I think that's where, and that's like a true thing. But interesting, because it's in their mouth and it's in the throat, but actually they're in the parasites originate in the stomach. Now it's interesting, because I think you'd also done some thinking about that, hadn't you?
No, I mean, I'd thought about what tapeworm is. It's you would get tapeworm from an unclean meat. So often pork would carry tapeworm. We're secondary hosts. The pig is the primary host.
Yeah.
And that's often where you would get tapeworm, and they also sit in your stomach and they suck your life out.
Yeah.
And I've heard of stories of people who've actually infected themselves with tapeworm to get thin.
That's crazy.
And the tapeworm takes all their nutrition, but they don't put
any weight on.
So it's just the stuff we chew over, and what is pork? It's meat. You think you're getting something that somebody's taught you, like it's strong doctrine that you feel somebody's taught you that is good, but actually it contains these parasites. So I know it's a bit gross, but that if you dream about having a worm coming out of your stomach, it's probably something that's gone in that's unclean. So the stomach is a very interesting dream element.
Yeah, it really, really is. I think we've done a pretty thorough job on it as well. So that's good.
And thanks to everybody who sent us their dreams. We really appreciate it.
We really do appreciate it. Yeah.
So what would it mean if you dreamed about blood?
Blood. Well, my goodness. So just again, in summary, if you are dreaming about blood, it's usually associated with the flow of life. You think about what blood does for our body. It transports oxygen and other nutrients and things around the body so that the right things get to where they need to be. And that's its purpose. If there's no flow of blood, we are dead, basically. And also the second thing to note is it's not normal for it to be seen. Again, like especially blood, actually. If you see blood, it's because somebody's got a wound, or there's been a fight, or an accident, or something has happened, which has created a situation which is not supposed to be normal. So it's about the flow of life, but to see it is should not be a normal thing as part of our everyday life, except in very specific circumstances, like maybe in an operating theatre, but that would kind of be about it.
Yes, and it's interesting because I did I had a look at blood, and when we think about the Hebrew word mem, it's the same word for waters, actually. So the Hebrew letter mem, I apologize, is the same as waters. And it's interesting because the concept of mem is blood, the ocean, the rivers, and so that's actually the water that flows like a river on the earth, that brings life to the earth, is the same as us. And the blood that flows through our veins is the life bringer. It brings oxygen to all our cells. And if we don't have blood, it's going to be it's a sapping out of our life. And so if you read Leviticus 17 verse 11, there's the life of the flesh is in the blood. And he says there, I've given it to you to make atonement for your souls upon the altar. So life in the blood Jesus' blood brings life. Jesus' blood brings complete redemption. So it's a very, very interesting element. And we just wanted to chat a bit more about blood because it's quite an important dream element. So it's the life of the man, and actually the Hebrew word for blood is dam, which is Adam. So it's the same as the life inside us as humans. So do you have any other thoughts that you
just to that's a really good summary, but just to say that there's an intertwining in that metaphor, a bit like we talk about bread and the word, that like the flow of water, we think about that as a dream element is like the Holy Spirit, the river from the temple, the flow of the Holy Spirit from God's throne. And so blood is like the flow of life. Those two metaphors sit very, very close. The symbols sit very, very closely to each other in dreams.
So if you see blood in a dream, and this is what I want to talk about, I'm going to read this dream, I want to talk about this dream, where the dreamer sees blood. So let me read it and you can tell me your thoughts on it. I dreamt I was on a school campus at night in an American city. I saw an African youth who looked sheepish and was minding his own business. 2 other African youths approached him with a gun and an intention to force him to do their will or shoot him dead. There was a struggle, the gun went off, and the attacking youth was shot dead. I witnessed all these events. The original youth was left holding the gun. I could hear him thinking that I'm holding the gun and I have blood on me and I'm black. No one is going to believe I didn't do this. So let's have a think about, because in this dream there's blood and you can see blood. So I just wanted to hear what your thoughts were on the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a really interesting dream, isn't it? I mean, the center of this dream actually is somebody's been attacked, and there's been a struggle. It's like one of those movie scenes, you know, where two people are struggling and like they're close up to each other and the gun goes off and you're kind of like, oh my goodness, who's actually got the shot? Who's got shot here? Is it the person who's doing the attacking? It's come back on them, or is it the person that they were trying to get in the first place? And it turns out it's the person who was doing the attacking. But then the innocent party in it has felt like they're going to get blamed for the whole thing. So, I mean, you know, again, guns, we're talking about like quite targeted, personal, authoritative words designed to like pierce and attack. And clearly there's some kind of struggle going on here. I mean, it's a fight, it's a confrontation. It's probably talking about people who've had some kind of argument. One person's tried to go to the other to attack them, and the other person has struggled with them. And in the struggle, it's kind of ended the relationship. But the person who's left standing kind of feels like, I'm going to get blamed for this. That there's no way that you know, because I'm an African, it's like people are just going to suspect it's me because they know what I'm like. So that's it. There's been an argument. People know what I'm like. They're just going to blame me for this, even though it's not my fault. And then the mist of blood on the jacket is kind of evidence that it was that person that did it. It's actually like a CSI thing. It's kind of like a proof that they were involved in it, right? Obviously
he didn't, and that was like, if I get the blood seen on me, but that means the blood shows that there's been a death.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, and blood is often blood in dreams can be evidence of conflict, struggle. And in a really kind of in a bad way, you know, and because it's the flow of life, it's like somebody's lost life. The life has flown out of somebody's body in this struggle that's taken place. It's damage, you know. Yeah. It's like it's difficult. These are not just the kind of arguments where we're arguing about whether we're going to have pizza or burgers tonight. These are like really deep, our relationship is over kind of arguments, you know.
So that's interesting. So if that's like blood as in a crime scene or seen on as blood splatter.
Yeah.
So but what would it mean if you in a dream saw a nurse taking blood as a test or in a test tube at council offices? Because I got sent that as a question. What does it mean if a nurse took some blood for a test at council offices?
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think the key in this metaphor is it's a test. right? So somebody's doing the testing, and it's a nurse. So that's somebody who's involved in caring. So it's somebody who is involved in caring, is testing the flow of life of the dreamer. This could be good, and it could be bad. If it's good, then it is either a human or an angelic person who is wanting to make sure that your blood is okay, so your flow of life is okay, your spiritual flow of life is okay, because if there's something in it, they would want to do something about it. But there's also the negative meaning of a test, where somebody who looks like they are supposed to be caring is testing you to see if you're kind of acceptable. It's like there's certain things that you can and can't get if on the basis of a blood test. When like you can't give blood if you've been in certain countries like within 2 or 3 years, because it's just too risky. So you can test blood to exclude somebody from something as well, and pick up a problem in the negative sense, and not just for healing.
Could it be something to do with a bloodline or a family bloodline?
It could be, actually. I mean, as a metaphor. So whatever's in the blood, it could be, if it's a genetic test. I mean, there's nothing in the dream which says what the test was for. But if somebody's testing your genetics, then that would clearly be like they're looking for things in your family line.
I mean, you interpreted a dream once as well, where somebody got shot, but the person, I don't know if you want to chat about that dream a bit.
Yeah. This was another dream about blood. Somebody was descending. The dreamer said they were descending from steps of a large official building. A shot rang out from a crowd. The dreamer said she thought it hit her husband, who was standing next to her, but it actually hit her in the stomach. There were huge amounts of blood, but she kind of felt at peace and not panicked. So then that's a really, really interesting dream, and actually quite troubling. And again, this is being we were talking about stomach a moment ago, and this is being shot in the stomach. So we just pull that, pull all of that in. This is a targeted word. It's anonymous though, actually, because it's come from a crowd. You can't even see who shot at you. So it's a anonymous, targeted word designed to pierce. She thinks it's hit her husband, so it actually might have, in the manifest world, come towards her husband, or that's what she thinks, but it's actually damaged her a lot more than she thought, and she's lost a lot of life as a result of it. But she somehow feels peaceful about this and not panicked, which I suppose is quite kind of a good thing. She has a trust or a faith in this situation that it's going to be okay, but she should pay attention to the fact that so much of her kind of life force has left her. It's going to leave her very injured and weakened, and in the natural she may not have any energy to do the kind of things that probably she and her husband were doing. There's just no life. There's no life in her. When you say do you want to go do that thing, and you just say there's no life in me to do that. I don't have the energy to do that. It's not like I don't have the physical energy to go and watch this movie. It's just I just don't really want to do it. I don't want to engage with it.
Because if you have internal bleeding, I don't think anybody's dreamt about internal bleeding, but it'd be interesting because often if you're in a car crash, that's always the worst incident for internal bleeding, and that often would speak about two ministries that have clashed and caused internal bleeding to both of them. So it's like it's a blunt force trauma accident, like being struck with a weapon. That can also is internal bleeding. So blood is a very, very interesting dream element. And I just wanted to pick up some of the comments. Renee has joined us, and she says that blood being shown could be spiritual death, and I think the interpretation about the gun shooting are words spoken against each other in an argument.
I think that's right.
Thank you so much, Renee, for sharing those. Right, so what would it mean if you dream about the heart? So we were sent a very interesting dream where somebody said, my mother dreamt she had open heart surgery. So how do we start thinking about this?
The heart is part of the cardiovascular system, which we've spoken about, that it pumps blood around your body, and is to do with your flow of life. But it's interesting because it's a biblical metaphor. You know, you often read in the actually through all the way through the Bible, it talks about your my heart being full. Or we also say about being broken-hearted, and so in that sense, the heart is kind of representative of our inner person. And I think that there's a Hebrew concept that it was a seat of thought and emotion. But you've done some interesting research on that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I went to the lexicon and I went to Benner's book, and I found it quite interesting because actually the thing for the heart, the two letters are the shepherd's staff and the tent. But the shepherd's staff often speaks about authority or leading or directing, and the tent is actually what's inside the house, what's inside your house, because we're temples of the living God. It's what's inside our house. So it represents that thing of the authority inside. So what's in our heart then will direct or take us from one place to another. If you think about a shepherd's staff, it grabs your neck, it grabs the sheep's neck, and it leads him to a place. Or it's a very clear picture of what's inside us. And obviously, back in the day, the Israelites had no idea about the brain as being the center of thought, and obviously it's the center of the mind, the will, and the emotions. And so it's the thing that controls us, and we know now this is the thing that the brain does, but actually it was seen as the heart. And there's a lot of scripture about the heart, you know, like Laval's heart died in him and he became like stone, and he must have fallen down dead. You know, wisdom in the heart, making sense in your heart. Samuel's mum, who felt pain of having no children, she felt pain in her heart, fear that makes your heart melt. So it's that thing of the thing that's inside our heart and actually inside of our soul, which is your mind, your will, and your emotions, that controls how we behave. And the Bible tells us to renew our minds, and that's the thing it's saying, is to renew get a renewed mind, so that you're not controlled just by your mind, your will, and your emotions, but that you're actually controlled by the Word of God. And so that's really important. It's how we make good choices. You know, David, it's actually the seat of desire, they saw it as, and it's the place where David said, I had a desire to build God's temple. It's Proverbs 3 verse 5. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. And it's interesting. So what I want to talk about is the prophets, and my favorite prophet, Jeremiah. So he saw, I love Jeremiah. Oh dear, he's such an interesting prophet. He saw the heart as inextricably evil. Just at the core of every human's heart, it's evil. Because in his generation, he saw some definitely terribly corrupt stuff that was happening with the Israelites, and that's why they were sent into exile. So he said, in Jeremiah, he says we need our hearts to be circumcised. You know, David asked after he sinned with Bathsheba, creating me a clean heart. Jeremiah says we need God's commands written in our heart. And the most interesting one is actually, I love Ezekiel. It says, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. And that's what I think this dream of open heart surgery is all about. I think that what God is saying is, I'm giving your mum a new heart, a heart of flesh. And I asked, is your mum a new Christian, or what's going on? And she actually said, I think her mum is a new Christian, and I believe there's a transformation happening in her mum's heart. And so it's a really good dream. Open heart surgery is actually really positive, and it's actually a really good dream element. So we really appreciate you sending us that, Joey Grunewald. And you can tell your mum it's a really good dream, and it's a really positive interpretation actually of what it means. Do you have anything to add to that?
Only that I kind of there's a play on words as well about being open-hearted, and often you are when you're a new believer. So if to have an open heart surgery on it, you have to have an open heart for God to change you. And so there's that aspect to it as well. It's a good dream.
Very good. Thank you for that. I should have asked you that a bit earlier.
Ah, it's all right.
And I'll just pick up, Renee says it's regenerating her heart. So that's definitely a confirmation for you, Joey, to tell your mum that God's doing something wonderful in her life. So let us talk about lungs.
What would it mean if you dream about lungs?
So it's interesting because we were sent a dream where somebody said, I dreamt twice this week that my husband's aunt had stage 4 lung cancer. She's a new Christian, but she's not baptized yet. And I had this dream twice in 1 week. And that is really, really interesting because a repetitive dream makes you take notice. That's God saying, I want you to take note here.
Confirmation, right?
Confirmation.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that dream in a minute, because it's an interesting dream, and I don't know if you want to tell us a bit about what you think the lungs could mean, and then we can maybe understand what the dream means better.
Yeah. So lungs is part of the respiratory system, and as such, it gets our oxygen into our bloodstream and around our body. In the Bible, the lungs are associated with breath, and breath is associated with spirit. So it's often to do with spiritual things, just as like when you think about the sea as and the land and the air, then the air is the spiritual, because you're kind of looking up towards the heavens, which is where the ancients believed God dwelled, was up in the sky. So just as the sky is spiritual and looking up towards it, so breath is the spirit of a man, and where the spiritual life is represented by breath. And interestingly, it often gets lungs often, for me at least, pop up as again, it's something that when you in normal life you just don't notice that you're breathing, you just do it. So it often pops up when something's wrong, and one of the probably most prominent maladies is to do with smoking. I mean, that's like the legacy of the last century or so. So smoking kind of has two aspects. One is that which goes in, and the other is that which goes out. And often what goes in is kind of a wrong spirit. So if you're dreaming about tobacco or smoking or the dangers of smoking, then that could be to do with something spiritual that's wrong, a spiritually wrong idea, direction, desire, something spiritually that's not right. And it goes in quite quickly. That's the thing, when you have to chew something over if it goes through your mind, and swallow it and digest it. But if you breathe something in, it just goes straight into your bloodstream, and it's straight into your flow of life. So you've got to be very careful with things that dreams are to do with smoking. When smoke comes out, so if you're dreaming about somebody, the breath being polluted by tobacco, then it can be to do with offence. I mean, it could be to do something demonic. It's like a horrible, like, if you don't smoke, then somebody else's smoke is really repulsive. So it could be to do with something demonic or something offensive or unclean, an unclean spirit.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So then let's have a chat about the dream, because that makes sense in the context of lung cancer. She's been smoking something, hasn't she?
Yes,
that's often
right.
what lung cancer is related to. It may not be, but I feel like perhaps it's to do with something your mum has believed or taken in a spiritual sense, breathing in cigarette smoke. What do you think that represents then? You'd mentioned it. Cigarette smoke would be? If
you're a smoker, it's something you're doing to yourself. So it's a spiritual practice you're doing knowingly.
Yeah.
If it's passive smoking, then you're part of the wrong environment. So you've been in an environment which is spiritually bad for you. So it would be to do with something like that. There's stage 4 lung cancer is, I don't know a huge amount about this, but I know stage 4 is kind of the last stage of cancer before you die. So stage 4 lung cancer is very, very serious. We also have to think in this dream about the relationship. It's the husband's aunt right? This is my husband's aunt. So an aunt can often be to do with it's not a brother or a sister, so it's probably not to do with like a relationship to another person. But aunt can often, so it could be somebody who's related to you but senior and across, if you see what I mean. You have a relationship. Yeah, it could be. I think just while we're still on the symbolic stuff, I think it could be to do with another church, because aunts and uncles, it's often sort of like a related church. If you had two churches that were closely aligned to each other, if your father and mother have a relative, it could be a church. But it could be it's the father's aunt. So you'd have to think a bit more along those lines about what the relationship might be. I mean, I suppose the big question is, does this person actually have lung cancer and you just don't know about it? I mean, you would be asking that, wouldn't you? And like, what advice could we help with in that regard?
I mean, it could be a prophetic dream. I dreamt once that a friend had died because they were being treated for cancer, but it wasn't the cancer that had killed them, it was the treatment. And actually, it was pretty 3 days later we found out that this had actually happened to a friend's husband. He'd gone for cancer treatment. He'd reacted extremely badly to one of the cocktail drugs in the cancer treatment, and he has a specific genetic thing, and they had to rush him to hospital. And I'd actually seen this in a dream. So it could be that, but obviously it might not be that. And so it's always going back to God and saying, what are you showing me here, God? What are you drawing my attention to?
Yeah, and if you are worried that this person could have cancer, then I mean, it's just look for the signs. If they've got stage 4, they'll probably have some symptoms. So it'll be something like a persistent cough that they can't get rid of. So if you hear that they've got a cough, maybe say to them, yeah, you really maybe should go to a good doctor and get that tested and try and get them on the right road. But don't worry about it, because it's overwhelmingly likely to be symbolic.
Yes,
right?
Usually is in dreams.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's understanding, do you get more prophetic dreams? Do you feel that God speaks to you more symbolically? As time's gone, I've been getting more prophetic dreams about stuff and less symbolic. So,
but I've been getting more symbolic dreams.
But actually, you had a prophetic symbolic dream.
Yeah, that's
right. And we'll share that dream. It's a very interesting dream. So we thank you so much, Michelle Fredericks, for sending us that dream, and hopefully that has helped you a little bit to understand what your dream could mean. So there was an interesting dream about somebody trying to warn you about the dangers of smoking, but it was weird because they had weird eyes.
Yes.
So I don't know if you want to talk to that a bit before we finish this line.
Just again, smoking. We've kind of picked up on a few things. We often say if somebody has a wacky idea, what have you been smoking? It's like, what drugs are you on? So it can be to do with like wacky ideas, like real, like where did that come from kind of stuff. But I did have a dream. I kind of talked about it, I think a couple of weeks ago, where I was in a space, in a room, and part of the furniture of this room was a machine designed to illustrate the dangers of smoking. And I kind of have a pretty good idea that it was within the space related to a certain group of people. Within this group of people, they were quite focused on managing sin and discovering if you'd been snared in any way, and looking for snares in the spiritual life and in the prophetic and avoiding them. So a lot of it was about, don't do this, don't do that, avoid this, avoid that, there's this trap, there's that trap, look out for this deal with this spirit in this way when you find it. It was quite kind of negative stuff, and that was what was represented by a machine which is designed to illustrate the dangers of smoking, right? It's kind of that sort of sin focus in others and in yourself.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Thank you so much for that. So what I'll do is I'll pick up some comments over here. Let's go have a look. Renee says that 2 Timothy 2 verse 17 relates to lungs. We'll definitely go have a look at that. That's fantastic. And then she has some ideas on ideas about cancer and stuff. So we'll have a look at those later and definitely incorporate them. So thank you guys for all your participation and your comments, and we're just going to do the last section We're a bit over time, but I think I want to deal with this because it was a question we were sent, and I think it's an important question to answer. Let us talk about what would it mean if your dreams, you see an exposure of your private areas. It's a bit dark, weird and difficult, but it's worth having a look at, because we have been sent some questions about this, and we've had an anonymous question about this. So let's have a look at that.
So what would it mean if you dream about exposure of private areas? Well, I mean, if you think about the feeling of being in public and being exposed, it's often about embarrassment and shame. And dreams that talk about where that is the feeling, because you can have other dreams where you feel you're exposed, but you don't feel any shame at all. And that is often about doing with transparent. But these dreams aren't about that, actually. It's about not being aware of being exposed. So in that sense, it's to do with something you don't want to be seen being seen, and it being a source of it's a worry about that being an embarrassment or a shame. What is being exposed will give you maybe a clue into what that talks about, and also the context. A business presentation is very different from a church service, for instance. Might also tell you what the context for this is. And the other thing to think about is just the point of view. Sometimes we're the ones who are exposed, and other times we're helping someone who's exposed, and that will also help to tell you, help you to zone in on what's going on here.
So now that you say talk about others being exposed, let's talk about this dream. I've also dreamt that a woman's breasts, abdomen, and underpants were exposed to me during a church service. She had a woman with her who was helping her as she was unsteady on her feet. This woman covered the exposed woman back up by pulling her dress into place. It had become caught up when we all stood to sing. So that's a very interesting dream about exposure of private areas. I'd love it if you could just cover that, what you think it means.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's to do with... well, it's interesting, isn't it, that it's this exposure happens when a woman who's already unsteady on her feet, which is talking about an inability to kind of to stand up. So it may be that she is under some kind of difficulty. She's dealing with trouble in her life in some form because she's struggling to stand. So she's feeling oppressed by something, but she wants to stand to sing. Which is part of the worship. So worship can be actual worship, but it can also be when you... one of the words for worship is to be guided by the North Star. So it's when you're talking about, singing about God's direction in your life and where your life is going, where you feel God is leading you. This might be to do with when she starts to do that, there's this exposure, and the dreamer is seeing her... basically her reproductive organs, it seems like her ability to nurture, which is her breasts, and her abdomen and her underpants. So it's not a complete nudity, and she has a covering, but she would be embarrassed for this to be seen. And she has a woman who's helping her, who actually does she say that? She does, doesn't she? By pulling the dress back into place. So she pulls the covering back over herself. So she said something which is embarrassing. It reveals an uncovering, but somebody else has also kind of covered over for her. So she's got the help. So I suppose the response for this to be is, well, do I need to do anything here? It sounds like actually she is already got help. So maybe I just need to note that this person is in this situation and pray for her and just kind of let it go. I think that's probably how I would read that.
Yeah, that's
that
really
dream.
good. That's really good. So we thank you so much, Francine Hayes, for sending us that dream. It's a good dream, and it's God showing you something about this woman. And I don't know if she's a leader or you are seeing it because you were helping in a church or something like that. But I think that's pretty good.
Yep. Thank you.
So this dream we were sent about being exposed, and it's a bit difficult, and it's anonymous, so I just wanted to read it out and tell you, and then maybe you can tell me what you think it's about. She dreams she's going to a business presentation. There are 3 people, They go to the company, they sit around a boardroom table, then 3 people in this boardroom fall asleep, and the person presenting is ending the conversation, and none of them knew what he'd said in the presentation, obviously, because they'd fallen asleep. So they leave confused, and they go into the car park, but she's aware that her skirt is high, and you can see a bit of a bum, and she tries to act all cool by covering it up and walking away, but she feels uncomfortable about it.
I know this is a very interesting dream. So, I mean, I think the first thing I zone in on here is that the environment, it's a business presentation. So business is either spiritual business or it's business, and it can be both. If you work in the church, then it could, both of those things are kind of the same thing. So it's something to do with that. There were 3 of us. It could be to do with other people who are around you. And it's a table in the boardroom, which always talks about management, decision making, and the heart of an enterprise. That's where all the big decisions happen in any kind of business, spiritual business, church business, or other business. And then an interesting thing happens. The next moment, it was like they all fell asleep. And that sleeping is often in a dream means to not be conscious of something. So they've gone into this environment, but they're kind of not really aware of what's happening in this environment. And then it sort of ends, but nobody really knows what happens, which kind of reinforces there's something that's passed you by. Something has happened and it's passed you by. And then on your way out of this, you try and act cool by covering up this fact that something's been revealed. It's like it's a bit of bum and pant because the dress has kind of got hooked up. So again, there's something that is a bit embarrassing that you've realised has become uncovered, and you didn't want it to be seen. You don't want it to be seen, and the whole thing, kind of this whole process, the being unaware, has made you uncomfortable. Actually, Renee just said a good thing when she was talking about this. It's often to do because it's private, it's private parts. It's to do with privacy, and it's to do with something you don't want to be being exposed. And I think that's kind of really what's happening in this dream. It's a fear that you're going to go into this business meeting, which I think is a real context. It's either a church context or a business context. Something's going to pass you by. You're going to have a conversation. You're not really going to know what's going on, but it's going to leave you feeling like something that you didn't want exposed, that should be private, is been exposed, and you walk away feeling uncomfortable. I guess the thing to do there is to ask for wisdom and clarity on what it is, and then you'll be able to understand what to do about it, but also to know that God really, when you're not aware of stuff, and maybe it's something that's happening because of the environment you're in, God guards us and hedges us and covers us in those situations. So your fear of embarrassment may not be as bad as you think it is, if you see what I mean.
Well, that's really good. No, that's great. And so I think that's where we'll end it. And because she's an anonymous dreamer, I won't mention names. But thank you so much for sending that to us. We really, really appreciate you guys being open and vulnerable, and sending us all these very personal dreams. So let us greet a few more people and say goodbye to everyone, and thank you all. Hello and then goodbye.
Yeah.
So if you want to just greet a few more people who have come in. I see Maria Bivan has come in since, and
Yep.
Yandin Kwazi. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us.
Thank you.
And my favourite person, Joe Hampton. Well, no, you're all my favourite people. No, but I thank you, Joe, for joining us.
Marie Berens as well, from
Yes,
Australia. Thanks so
Maria.
much, Maria,
Yep.
for coming online this
Yep.
morning. Really appreciate you being here. I think that covers it. Thanks.
And
Thanks so
Carolina
much.
Nielsen has joined us. Did you say Carolina Nielsen?
Maria Buvan said Carolina Nielsen
Oh, I
in one of
think-
her comments. I don't know if she
okay.
was trying to get tagging her so she could pick up on a dream element.
So if you came in a bit late, we were chatting a bit about the next period. We're just going to take some time off for the kids. Sophie's off on school holidays. Ethan's here, so we're going to have a bit of time with our kids. We love spending time with them and kind of helping them and their lives and stuff. So we'll probably be back in a few weeks, but we'll let you know. But in the meantime, right at the beginning, if you missed the beginning, John's gone over some of the stuff on YouTube, and the pods. We're going to be downloading quite a lot of those. So thanks.
Yeah, just go back over. It's headline there is on YouTube. We're creating an encyclopedia of dream elements, questions, and the stuff we've done on approach. It's all short and accessible. If you want to know what a car means in a dream and you think, oh man, John and Ord's talked about that, we'd like to go back over it, you can go straight onto YouTube and you'll see a 10 to 12 minute video on what cars mean in dreams.
And please do like and subscribe, because as we add videos, they'll come up for you. And it's going to be quite a comprehensive list of the stuff we've done. So I'm busy trying to carry on editing and stuff, and I apologize if there's anything wacky in the editing. I'm still learning, and so I'm going to do my best for you guys, yeah. So thanks, Renee, saying it was an interesting session. Blessed time off. Thank you very much. And Heather says have a great time together. So thanks, guys, and blessings, and we'll be in contact, and we'll keep in contact, and we appreciate you all. And so we'll say goodbye and God bless.